Last year, my wife and I had an opportunity to celebrate our 20th anniversary. We went to this resort called The Lodge at Geneva-on-the-Lake. The weekend package included some winery tours. My wife loves a good glass of wine, a beautiful lake view of Lake Erie, and wonderful dining at some great restaurants. Overall, it was a delightful experience for the two of us. But soon, it became the four of us. I'm Bobby Taylor, and this is the Lakeview Podcast. During our trip, we ran into a couple. The gentleman's name was Ken Scruggs. He had a very interesting story and was eager to share it with us because he had invested a lot of time and resources discovering his story. Now, Ken told us about how he grew up being a loner. He grew up in this alcoholic home with a very tumultuous upbringing. For many years of his life, he had been researching and doing a lot of genealogy, learning his family history. In his travels and research, Ken discovered a few things. He comes from a Puritan background, and his ancestors on his maternal side sailed to America from England, where they landed in Massachusetts and eventually made their way to West Virginia. On his dad's side, his family came from Western Virginia and at some point made their way to West Virginia as well. But that was the short version of his first of many stories. He entertained Candace and I all evening with vivid stories about his great-great-great-grandparents and his family members. From bar fights to random name changes, divorces, and family members being imprisoned, and actually having a connection to the Ohio mob by way of bar ownership in Hawaii. Ken not only accepted his family's past, but he really embraced his seemingly dysfunctional lineage. And throughout his youth, he seemed to be destined to the same outcome. He had a terrible childhood filled with stretches of homelessness and lack of direction. But he finally got it together during his high school years when Ken discovered his gift of being able to offer tutoring help to other students. The confidence, along with his God-given intelligence, eventually led Ken to Miami University. And it was during his freshman year when the guidance counselor asked him to declare his major. Unaware of the first-year requirement, Ken was unprepared. So the counselor asked him, "What are you good at?" Ken said, "I'm good at math and working with my hands." And with that, the counselor placed him in the engineering department. 4 years later, he graduated and soon became a civil engineer with the state of Ohio. Years later, he used his knowledge to start Midwest Aerial Photo, a privately owned mapping business. His company grew to include a fleet of airplanes while acquiring lucrative government and private company contracts. His business allowed him to fund trips around the world, those trips he needed for his personal mission of discovery. His travels allowed him to visit and experience places that he only dreamt of or read about or seen in movies. Just imagine a man from a small town with broken beginnings and a long history of failures becoming a successful entrepreneur who now is seeing the world, who ended up at this Lakeview resort sharing his story about his Lakeview. It reminded me how with an education and an opportunity, anyone can overcome generational poverty, criminality, and despair. He needed a counselor to help direct him, but he was determined to break the cycle. And breaking the cycle is what this podcast is all about. If you are a counselor or the mentor or the teacher providing the guidance, or if you're the one who comes from a long history of failures and dependency, having a Lakeview is essential for either role. At some points in his travel, Ken ended up in Africa on the west bank of the Nile, experiencing the sights of the Giza pyramids. It was there that he learned his greatest life lesson. Ken said as he traveled to the top of the pyramids and rode his camel around these majestic monuments, he noticed a tour bus, and he rode close enough to the bus to look inside. And he was surprised to see that not everyone got off the bus. That there were people who made it to Egypt to see the great wonders of the world, but never got off the bus. From age or health reasons, there were people who worked and saved their entire lives, but never got off the bus. Whatever their story, they did not get off the bus. Their whole life had been used up to the point that it prevented them from enjoying and taking advantage of where they were. And that inspired Ken to enjoy the now, to experience life and not take time for granted. So I encourage you, leaders, enjoy the blessings, enjoy the journey, enjoy the wins, enjoy the lake, enjoy the relationships, enjoy the now. We work hard to bless others in our work because we're called to do it. But there is a part of life that we can enjoy. Although we are social servants, by blessing others, we can be blessed too. So, enjoy the now. I'm Bobby Taylor, and you've been listening to the Lakeview Podcast.